The observers from Zarnath Prime, a species renowned for their meticulous studies of sentient life across galaxies, began their analysis of Earth. As they hovered in low orbit, their ship cloaked in advanced stealth technology, they recorded detailed data about the planet's inhabitants. These beings, humans, intrigued them more than any other species they had encountered. At first glance, humans appeared unremarkable. They lacked the physical strength of the Norans or the telepathic abilities of the Helixians. Yet, there was something unsettling about their behavior. The forward-facing eyes marked them as predators, a trait common enough among advanced species. But their omnivorous diet, consuming everything from plants to other animals with equal enthusiasm, hinted at a level of adaptability that the Zarnathians found unsettling. The more they observed, the stranger humanity became. Humans thrived in environments that would kill most other species. Deserts, frozen tundras, and even high altitudes were all fair game for their settlements. Their social structures were complex and paradoxical, blending cooperation with fierce competition. Wars and alliances seemed to coexist naturally, creating a confusing web of relationships. The Zarnathians were particularly fascinated by the concept of nations, arbitrary divisions of land that shaped human identity and behavior. Among these nations, one stood out: America. Initially, the name was just a statistical anomaly in their data. America appeared in an overwhelming percentage of global broadcasts, innovations, and cultural exports. Curious, the Zarnathians delved deeper. What they found baffled them. Americans were loud, self-assured, and seemed to revel in risk-taking behavior. Their obsession with freedom, individuality, and innovation bordered on reckless, yet it had propelled them to remarkable heights. They had reached the moon before any other nation, created technologies that connected the entire planet, and influenced cultures far beyond their borders. But it wasn't just their achievements that stood out. The Zarnathians noted peculiarities in their behavior. Americans thrived on challenges, often seeking them out even when unnecessary. Sports, competitions, and even their entertainment revolved around conflict and triumph. Their humor, filled with sarcasm and self-deprecation, was unlike anything the Zarnathians had encountered before. As they compiled their data, a theory began to take shape. Humans were predators, yes, but Americans embodied a specific kind of predator, an apex predator. Not in the physical sense, but in their psychological and cultural dominance. They had an uncanny ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome obstacles with relentless determination. The Zarnathians debated whether this was a trait unique to Americans or if it was simply a heightened expression of human potential. To find out, they devised a plan. A small-scale simulation, designed to test humanity's limits, would provide the answers they sought. If their theories held true, America would either confirm or shatter their understanding of humanity's place in the galactic order. The stage was set, and the Zarnathians prepared to watch closely. For all their knowledge and technology, they felt a twinge of unease. Humans were dangerous in ways they didn't fully understand, and Americans perhaps even more so. The Zarnathians initiated their simulation quietly, choosing a remote region of America to avoid widespread panic. A small fleet of observation drones descended into the area, projecting energy barriers and releasing harmless but imposing constructs designed to resemble alien invaders. Their goal was to provoke a reaction, gauge human behavior, and, if necessary, escalate the scenario. At first, the humans appeared startled but not paralyzed by fear. A farmer driving his truck down a dusty road stopped abruptly when he saw the strange constructs in his field. Rather than flee, he grabbed his phone and recorded the scene, muttering something about alien nonsense. Within minutes, the footage was shared on social media, sparking both alarm and an explosion of sarcastic commentary. The local response was immediate. Hunters, farmers, and small-town residents mobilized with surprising efficiency. People armed themselves with whatever was at hand: rifles, bows, and even improvised weapons. A retired Marine living nearby took charge, organizing the group into a coordinated defensive unit. They didn't panic. They strategized. The Zarnathians were puzzled. On most planets, an encounter like this would have led to chaos or submission. Instead, these humans laughed, cracked jokes, and made plans to deal with the situation. Their casual demeanor belied their readiness for conflict. One young man, holding a hunting rifle, grinned and said, "Looks like it's time to live out my action movie dreams." The first attempt to subdue the humans with energy barriers failed spectacularly. When a field was encased in an impenetrable dome, a group of farmers quickly began experimenting. They discovered that metal poles could redirect the energy, creating gaps in the barrier. Using tractors and brute force, they dismantled the structure within hours. The aliens watched in disbelief as their supposedly advanced technology was undone by tools designed for agriculture. The humans' use of technology was equally confounding. They used smartphones and radios to coordinate efforts across towns. Drones intended for aerial photography were repurposed to scout alien positions. On social media, hashtags like #AlienInvasion and #AmericaStrikesBack began trending, filled with videos of humans confronting the constructs. Memes circulated within minutes, mocking the invaders and rallying people to fight back. When the Zarnathians deployed their observation drones more aggressively, the humans responded with ingenuity. Fireworks were used to disorient the drones, while hunters took precise shots at their weak points. In one instance, a woman used a slingshot to disable a drone, her neighbors cheering as it crashed to the ground. Despite the increasing intensity of the simulation, the humans remained undeterred. Their humor and defiance baffled the Zarnathians. A group of teenagers set up a grill near one of the energy barriers, holding a makeshift barbecue while blasting patriotic music. When questioned by a reporter, one of them quipped, "If they're here to conquer us, they better bring better tech and better food." As the scenario escalated, the Zarnathians began to grasp the depth of the challenge they faced. These humans were not reacting as expected. Instead of succumbing to fear, they thrived under pressure, using every available resource to fight back. The simulation was no longer just an experiment, it was a revelation. By the end of the day, the Zarnathians realized they had underestimated not only human resilience, but the uniquely American blend of courage, creativity, and sheer audacity. This was a species that refused to back down, and these particular humans seemed to relish the opportunity to prove it. The Zarnathians, perplexed by the humans' response, escalated their analysis. They turned their focus entirely to the behaviors, strategies, and underlying traits that had driven this uniquely defiant reaction. What emerged was a clearer picture of why Americans, in particular, displayed an almost instinctive dominance when faced with challenges. The first observation was adaptability. Humans, in general, were remarkably resourceful, but Americans seemed to push this trait to extremes. No situation was met with resignation. Instead, every obstacle became an opportunity for innovation. The farmer who had used duct tape and scrap metal to capture a Zarnathian drone was a prime example. What the Zarnathians had designed as an untouchable reconnaissance device was now strapped to the back of a pickup truck, its circuitry rewired and its propulsion systems studied by amateurs with no formal training. Next was their unshakable confidence. While other species might rely on complex hierarchies or consult governing authorities in times of crisis, Americans had a deeply ingrained belief in individual and communal action. Authority figures were important but not indispensable. A single retired firefighter had coordinated a multi-town effort to dismantle an alien energy barrier, armed with nothing but a walkie-talkie and a sense of civic duty. This independence was intertwined with their collective identity. Americans, despite their individualism, had an uncanny ability to unite under a common cause. This paradox fascinated the Zarnathians. In a single day, rival communities put aside their differences to coordinate supply chains, distribute homemade weaponry, and strategize defense plans. Arguments about politics or culture vanished in the face of a shared adversary. The Zarnathians also noted a distinctive trait: relentless determination. Once committed, Americans didn't quit. A group of mechanics had spent the night converting a fleet of farm vehicles into makeshift armored transporters, welding sheet metal to tractors and installing crude but effective weapons systems. Sleep-deprived and running on caffeine, they worked with an enthusiasm that seemed almost irrational, laughing as they tested their creations at dawn. Underlying all of this was an element the Zarnathians struggled to quantify: cultural intangibles. Their data suggested that American culture had long romanticized defiance, ingenuity, and heroism. Movies, music, and even literature had instilled a collective mindset where overcoming impossible odds wasn't just expected, it was celebrated. The invaders became characters in a story Americans had told themselves for generations, and they were determined to write their own triumphant ending. But perhaps the most baffling element of all was humor. The Zarnathians had no cultural equivalent to this uniquely human phenomenon, and American humor was particularly enigmatic. Even under pressure, Americans joked, mocked, and ridiculed their circumstances. It wasn't denial, it was defiance. Memes featuring crude caricatures of the alien constructs spread rapidly, turning fear into laughter. A group of schoolchildren created a video in which they reenacted a battle against the drones, complete with improvised costumes and fake explosions. Every action the humans took seemed to reaffirm a singular conclusion: Americans weren't just reacting to a threat, they were thriving under it. Each failure the Zarnathians introduced was met with a new strategy, each escalation with greater ingenuity. The humans weren't merely surviving, they were evolving in real time, using the simulation as a proving ground for their creativity, resilience, and unity. By the end of the second day, the Zarnathians had seen enough. They now understood that these humans weren't apex predators in the traditional sense. They didn't rely on physical dominance or technological superiority alone. Their greatest weapons were their minds, their culture, and their unyielding belief that any challenge could be overcome. To the Zarnathians, it was both inspiring and terrifying. The Zarnathians withdrew their constructs and drones, retreating to orbit to reassess. The humans' response had exceeded their expectations in every conceivable way. What began as a test had transformed into an undeniable revelation. These beings were not just resilient, they were extraordinary, and Americans in particular were a category unto themselves. The Council of Zarnathian Analysts convened to discuss their findings. Some argued that humanity's potential posed an existential threat to the galaxy. A species with such adaptability and determination, coupled with their capacity for conflict, could easily dominate or destabilize intergalactic civilizations. Others, however, saw humanity's traits as a unique asset. They argued that a species capable of uniting against insurmountable odds could serve as a vital ally in defending against greater galactic threats. The debate turned to the Americans specifically. Their cultural emphasis on independence, freedom, and ingenuity made them unpredictable, even by human standards. One analyst highlighted the fact that Americans didn't merely resist, they reshaped the entire nature of the conflict. They had turned an apparent disadvantage into an opportunity to showcase their resourcefulness and, in the process, inspired others globally. The Zarnathians considered a final test to determine the full extent of humanity's capabilities. This time, they orchestrated a simulation involving a fabricated galactic threat, a projection of a colossal ship, and a transmission warning of impending planetary annihilation. The goal was to see if humanity could unite as a species, or if their internal divisions would undermine their efforts. The response was swift and decisive. While initial fear rippled through the planet, Americans were the first to act, broadcasting a rallying cry across global networks. The message was clear: Earth stood as one. The Zarnathians observed as nations set aside their differences to coordinate a planetary defense. American engineers shared blueprints for new technologies, American satellites coordinated global communications, and American culture provided the unifying narrative of resistance. But it wasn't just about Americans leading, it was about humanity rising together. The Zarnathians saw alliances form between former rivals, resources shared without hesitation, and a spirit of collaboration that transcended borders. It was a spectacle unlike anything the Zarnathians had ever witnessed in their studies of sentient species. When the final phase of the simulation concluded, the Zarnathians deactivated their projections and left subtle signals of their presence as a parting gesture. Their analysis was complete, and the conclusions were undeniable. Humanity, despite its flaws, was extraordinary. Americans, with their audacity and resilience, embodied the apex traits of their species. As the council reflected, one thought lingered among them. Humanity's potential was as boundless as it was dangerous. In the right circumstances, they could unite the galaxy against any threat. But their unpredictability also meant they could one day become the very threat they sought to overcome. The Zarnathians knew they had witnessed the dawn of something remarkable, a species on the cusp of defining its place in the universe.